not with the eyes that search for mistakes in others, not with judgment that wants to be right. Look with the quiet attention of a still mind. If you want to recognize when something dark moves through the people closest to you, first become aware that demons do not always arrive with horns and fire. Most of the time, they arrive as habits, as patterns, as energies that slowly drain life instead of giving it. Here are 6 keys, 6 mirrors. Use them not to accuse but to see clearly. First, observe the energy field. When you sit with someone, feel what happens inside your own body. Does your breath become shallow? Does your chest tighten? Does your mind suddenly fill with doubt, fear, endless stories? This is not random. This is information. A strong, balanced person leaves you feeling more alive. A person carrying heavy, untransformed energy leaves you feeling smaller, even when no word was spoken. Second, watch the patterns of control. True connection is freedom. Demonic influence loves control disguised as care. They tell you who you should be, what you should feel, who you should avoid, always for your own good. But look closer. Every time you follow their map, your own inner voice becomes weaker. That is the sign. Control that diminishes your sovereignty is never love. Third, see the hunger that never fills. Some people are always searching. More attention, more drama, more validation, more conflict. They feed but never become full. And the more you give, the more they demand. This is not ordinary human need. This is a bottomless well. When you notice that no matter how much light you bring, the darkness in them asks for more, then you are witnessing a force that feeds on life force. Fourth, notice the absence of self-reflection. A person walking the path of balance sometimes stops, looks inward, asks, am I acting from truth or from old pain? When someone close to you never asks this question, never admits wrong, never sees their own shadow, then the demon has built a very comfortable house. No mirror to no change, and no change, endless repetition of suffering for everyone around. Fifth, feel the division they create. Look at the web of relationships. Do they quietly turn people against each other? Do they plant small seeds of doubt between you and others? Be careful with him. She's not who you think. One small comment at a time. Harmony breaks. Isolation grows. This is a classic movement of lower energies divided, so that control becomes easier. Sixth, trust the moment of truth. The clearest sign appears when you set a healthy boundary. When you say, no, this I will not accept, watch what awakens then. If peace, understanding, even respect appears, there is hope. But if suddenly anger flares, manipulation arises, guilt is weaponized, or cold withdrawal follows, then you have touched the cage. Not with the restless eyes that hurry to label, to judge, to fix what appears broken in another. Not with the mind that already decided who is right and who is wrong before the breath even settles. Look slowly, silently, with the kind of attention that a mountain gives to the wind, present, unmoved, yet fully aware, because the darkness we call demon rarely announces itself with thunder or shadow. It prefers to move like mist, invisible at first, familiar, almost comforting. It dresses itself in everyday clothes, a habit repeated too many times, a tone that always carries a hidden blade, a need that quietly consumes everything around it. And because it wears the face of someone you love, mother, brother, closest friend, the mind hesitates. It makes excuses. It says, this is just how they are. But deep seeing knows better. The first mirror is the simplest and the most honest. Your own body becomes the detector. Sit near them. Breathe normally. Then notice. Does the air inside your chest suddenly feel thinner? Does your stomach quietly contract, as if preparing for something unseen? Does your mind begin to race with old doubts, small fears, stories you thought you had already released? This is not imagination. This is energy speaking its native language. A person rooted in balance, even if they carry pain, will leave you feeling expanded, more present, more yourself. But when something heavier moves through them, unacknowledged and untransformed, it reaches for your life force to. You feel it. You always feel it. Trust that silent signal before words arrive to confuse you. The second mirror reveals control wearing the mask of concern. Listen carefully to how they speak about your choices. Do they offer guidance, or direction? Do they celebrate your freedom or quietly disapprove when you step outside their picture of who you should be? Real love creates space. It says, go, explore, become. The other force whispers, stay close, stay small, stay safe according to my rules. And every time you bend to that voice, a piece of your inner sovereignty quietly fades. Over months, over years, you may not even notice how much smaller your own flame has become. That contraction is the evidence. Then there is the third mirror, endless hunger. Some carry a void so deep it has no bottom. They drink attention, drama, conflict, praise, pity, anything that flows, yet the cup never fills. The more you pour yourself in, time, understanding, patience, the more they lean forward asking for the next drop. This is not the natural thirst of a human being still growing. This is a different appetite. It feeds on vitality itself. When you see that your light only makes their shadow hungrier, pause. That is no longer relationship. That is consumption. The fourth mirror is perhaps the most revealing, the refusal to look inward. A soul walking any true path must eventually meet its own reflection. It must ask, where am I still acting from fear? Where do I hurt others because I refuse to feel my own wound? When this question never arises, when apology is impossible, when shadow is always projected outward onto others, the house of the demon is secure. No mirror inside means no light can enter, and without that opening, the same suffering repeats, not once, not twice, endlessly, for them, and for everyone who stays too close. The fifth mirror shows division. Observe the larger field. Do small comments plant distrust between you and others? Do they gently pull threads until the whole fabric of connection frays? One sentence. You know she talks about you behind your back. Another. I wouldn't trust him if I were you. Harmony begins to crack. People become isolated, and in that isolation, control grows stronger. This is ancient strategy. Divide the circle, weaken the whole, watch for it. It moves softly, but it leaves visible scars. Finally, the sixth mirror, the moment of boundary, is the most powerful test. Say, with calm clarity, this behavior I will no longer accept. Then observe. If understanding arrives, even slowly, if respect follows, there is still a living soul present. There is hope. But if rage erupts, if guilt becomes a weapon, if manipulation appears like a sudden storm, or if cold silence descends like a wall, then you have touched the prison. And whatever lives there hates to be seen, it fights to remain hidden. So remember, these are not monsters to slay with anger. They are patterns, energies, old pains seeking, in their distorted way, to be met, to be transformed. Your duty is not to rescue them. Your duty is to guard the flame you carry, to remain awake, to see without hatred, to choose from wisdom, not from fear or pity. The instant real seeing happens, you are free. And perhaps, only perhaps, that single moment of clear, compassionate awareness will plant the first seed of light inside their long darkness. Now stop looking outward for a second. Turn the mirror around, because the purest, most honest reflection will always be the one you hold inside yourself. Not with eyes that rush to condemn or rescue. Not with a heart already armored in opinion. Look as the old tree looks at the storm, rooted, patient, undisturbed in its watching. The so-called demons we seek rarely arrive with drama or visible chains. They slip in through the side door of familiarity. They borrow the voice of someone you have known for years. They smile with the same mouth that once brought you comfort. And because of this disguise, the mind wants to explain everything away. It is stress. It is their past. This is normal. But the wise one does not argue with excuses. The wise one observes what remains when all excuses are gently set aside. Your first and most reliable teacher is your own energy field. Enter their presence as you would enter a quiet room. Do not speak first. Do not think first. Simply feel. Is the space inside your body suddenly narrower? Does your natural rhythm slow, as if walking into cold water? Does a subtle weight settle on the shoulders, on the breath, on the clarity of mind? This is not coincidence. This is the language before language. A person who carries inner light, even if imperfect, tends to kindle something similar in you. You leave them feeling taller, clearer, more alive. But when an unhealed force moves through another, It does not rest content in its own vessel. It seeks to borrow from yours. You sense the drain before any word is spoken. Honor that knowing. It speaks truth when the mind still tells stories. Next, watch how power flows between you. Does their care feel like open sky or like a hand that guides too firmly? Real connection breathes room into both people. It allows mistakes, growth, even separation. But the shadowed pattern needs agreement. It needs your choices to fit its map. It expresses worry, disappointment, or moral superiority when you move differently. Each small adjustment you make to keep peace quietly erodes your own center. Over time, you realize the more you accommodate, the less space remains for your authentic self. That slow shrinking is the footprint of control masquerading as love. Then comes the mirror of insatiable need. Some hearts hold a hollow space that no amount of giving can fill. They consume compliments, time, secrets, arguments, tears, anything with emotional charge. Yet the moment you step back to breathe, the demand renews itself, stronger, more urgent. This is not ordinary human longing. It is hunger without end. When your generosity only seems to sharpen their appetite, when your presence becomes fuel rather than meeting, recognize the pattern. Relationship is mutual nourishment. Consumption is different. One sustains life. The other slowly empties it. Consider now the absence of honest self-encounter. A person traveling toward balance must, sooner or later, face their own reflection. They must taste the bitterness of their own contradictions. They must allow sorrow or shame to rise without immediately throwing it outward. When this turning inward never happens, when blame always finds another target, when the word sorry remains foreign, when every story positions them as victim or hero, then the inner chamber stays locked. No key, no visitor, no light. And from that closed room, the same cycles of pain radiate outward, touching everyone near, endlessly, without pause. Observe also how harmony is treated in their presence. Do quiet seeds of mistrust appear wherever they walk? A casual remark here, a careful suggestion there. Soon friends doubt friends. Family members distance themselves. The web weakens thread by thread. This is not accident. It is strategy older than memory. Isolate, then dominate. When connection frays and no one can trace the cause back to them, look again. The hand that pulls the strings often hides behind innocence. And when all else is uncertain, offer the final test, the clear boundaries spoken with calm strength. This I will not accept. This crosses my line. Deliver it without anger, without pleading. Then watch what awakens. If space is given, if reflection appears, even if slowly, a living being is still present, there is doorway. But if the response is swift fury, elaborate guilt, sudden charm offensive, or icy disappearance, you have brushed against the cage itself. The thing inside does not wish to be touched. It prefers the dark where it can pretend to be the whole person. These are not creatures to battle with sword or sermon. They are currents, wounds wearing human form, knots of energy that have forgotten how to unwind. Your role is not to untie them by force. Your role is to see them clearly, to protect the quiet fire you carry, to choose presence over reaction, to act from inner stillness rather than from fear, obligation, or hope of reward. The moment true seeing arrives, without story, without enemy, freedom is already yours. And in rare cases, that silent, unflinching clarity becomes the first gentle crack through which light may one day enter their night. Until then, keep returning to the most important mirror, the one you carry inside. Polish it daily. Look into it honestly. Because the clearest way to recognize shadow in others is to know your own so deeply that no disguise can fool you anymore. Not with the impatient gaze that wants quick answers, labels, villains or saviors. Not with a mind already crowded by old memories and ready-made conclusions. Look the way a still lake reflects the sky. Without hurry, without distortion, completely open. The energies we name demons almost never announce themselves with noise or obvious menace. They prefer subtlety. They weave themselves into the most ordinary moments. A sigh that carries too much weight. A joke that leaves a small sting behind. A silence that feels heavier than words. Because they arrive wearing the face of someone dear. Parent, sibling, lifelong companion. The heart hesitates to name what it feels. It whispers. This is just their mood. Everyone has bad days. Love means accepting everything. Yet true wisdom does not rush to defend or deny. It simply watches. It waits until the surface stories dissolve, and what remains is seen with naked clarity. Begin always with the body's quiet intelligence. Step into their space as if entering sacred ground. Leave words behind for a moment. Leave analysis behind. Just be present. Notice the breath. Notice the chest. Notice the subtle temperature inside you. Does warmth expand naturally? Or does something tighten like a fist closing slowly? Does time feel spacious? Or does it suddenly contract into pressure? Does your mind stay clear? Or do old doubts, small fears, forgotten wounds begin to stir without reason? This is no accident. Energy does not lie. A person who has made some peace with their inner world tends to leave you feeling more whole, even if they carry scars. But when an unresolved force dominates, it does not stay contained. It extends invisible tendrils. It draws from your vitality, often without their conscious awareness. You feel diminished. Trust that sensation. It is older and more honest than any explanation the mind can invent. Then turn attention to the dance of power. Does their affection feel like wide open space where both of you can grow? Or does it resemble a path with invisible fences? Authentic care invites, become more yourself. It rejoices in your independence, your different rhythm, your no. The shadow dynamic, however, requires alignment. It wears concern like a cloak. It says, I'm worried about you, when you choose differently. It sighs with disappointment. It withdraws warmth until you return to the approved shape. Each compromise you make to restore harmony chips away at your inner authority. Month after month, year after year, you may wake up realizing your own voice has grown faint. That gradual disappearance of self is the clearest mark of influence that seeks dominion rather than union. Now consider the mirror of bottomless appetite. Certain patterns are never satisfied. They feed on attention, drama, secrets, praise, conflict, pity, any currency of emotion. Offer a little and they lean in for more. Step back to breathe and the hunger sharpens, becomes urgent, sometimes desperate. No matter how much understanding you give, how much time, how many chances, the void asks again. This is not the healthy hunger for connection that belongs to every human heart. This is a different force, one that uses the person as host while seeking endless supply. When your light only seems to make their darkness more ravenous, recognize the difference. Nourishing relationship flows both ways. Endless taking is another matter entirely. Observe also the relationship to self-honesty. Any soul walking toward wholeness must eventually stop running. It must stand before its own reflection and feel the discomfort of truth. It must own where it has harmed, where it still fears, where it clings. When this inward turn is consistently avoided, when every difficulty is someone else's fault, when apology feels impossible, when the narrative always casts them as the righteous one, then the inner space remains sealed. No light enters, no change arrives. And from that sealed place, the same pain patterns radiate outward, touching every close relationship with mechanical repetition. The absence of self-inquiry is perhaps the loudest signal of all. Look further at how connection fares around them. Do small fractures appear in the circle whenever they are near? A whispered doubt here, a careful warning there. Gradually, trust erodes. People pull away from each other without quite knowing why. This is not coincidence. It is an ancient tactic. Weaken the collective strength, then the isolated become easier to shape. When harmony quietly unravels and the source stays hidden behind innocence or victimhood, look twice. And when doubt still lingers, offer the ultimate mirror, the calm, unwavering boundary. Speak it simply. This I cannot allow. Say it without heat, without apology, without begging. Then observe the response. If respect emerges, even slowly, even imperfectly, a conscious being is still there. A door remains open. But if the reaction is sudden rage, sophisticated guilt, manipulative charm, or complete emotional shutdown, you have touched the boundary of the cage. The force within resists exposure above all else. Understand this deeply. These are not outside enemies to destroy. They are old, tangled currents of pain, fear, and unintegrated energy. They wear human faces because they dwell within human forms. Your task is never to conquer them. Your task is to see without illusion, to guard the clear light you carry, to act from rooted stillness rather than from pity, duty, or the wish to be the savior. The instant genuine seeing arises, free of story, free of blame. You stand in freedom, and in the rarest, most mysterious moments, that pure, unaggressive clarity may become the very first breath of light that softly touches their long-hidden night. Until such grace arrives, return again and again to the only mirror that never lies, the one within you. Clean it, face it, know it completely. For the deepest protection against shadow in others is the unflinching knowledge of your own. This is not the end of love. This is love becoming wiser. This is the path, not with eyes sharpened by suspicion or softened by sentiment, not with a heart that already knows what it wants to find. Look as the eagle looks from the high place, vast, patient, seeing the movement beneath the surface without being pulled into it. The forces we call demons do not often come crashing through the door. They enter quietly like smoke under a closed window. They settle into familiar gestures, repeated tones, the small daily rituals that once felt safe. They borrow the eyes of the person you trust most, the voice you have heard since childhood, the hand that once held yours. And precisely because the disguise is so intimate, the mind recoils from recognition. It says, "This is family." It is only a face. Real love overlooks flaws, but love that is awake does not overlook. It sees. It sees without hatred, without hurry, without the need to fix or flee. It sees until illusion can no longer hide. Your body is the first and most truthful witness. When you are near them, do not rush to speak or think. Simply arrive. Let awareness rest in the breath, in the chest, in the quiet field of sensation. Is there a subtle cooling, as if a window opened to winter? Does the natural ease of being contract, the way a flower closes against frost? Does the mind, usually spacious, suddenly crowd with echoes? Old guilt, sudden self-doubt, stories you thought had lost their power. This is not imagination playing tricks. This is the silent conversation of energies. A soul that carries some harmony, even amid struggle, tends to leave you feeling brighter, more grounded, more present to yourself. But when a heavier current runs unchecked through another, it does not remain polite. It reaches, it siphons. You feel the quiet theft before any word explains it away. Listen to that inner signal. It remembers what the conditioned mind has learned to ignore. Now watch the subtle choreography of influence. Does their presence expand your possibilities or quietly limit them? True care is spacious. It says, fly, stumble, return, become whatever shape truth takes in you. It delights in your difference. The other pattern needs conformity. It dresses control in tenderness. A raised eyebrow when you choose differently. A soft, "I'm just concerned," that carries the weight of judgment. A withdrawal of warmth until you step back into the agreed role. Each small surrender to restore peace carves away another layer of your own center. Years may pass before you notice how faint your inner compass has become, how much you have learned to orient yourself by their sky instead of your own. That slow erosion is the signature of something that values possession over partnership. Then there is the mirror of inexhaustible craving. Some patterns are hollow at the core. They take in affection, conflict, secrets, validation, anger, every flavor of intensity, yet the emptiness grows wider. Give a handful and they ask for the arm. Step away to breathe and the demand sharpens into urgency, accusation, or dramatic need. No quantity of care, time, forgiveness, or understanding ever seems to reach the bottom. This is not the natural thirst of a growing soul. This is consumption wearing human skin. When your giving only appears to feed the hunger, when your light seems to illuminate a deeper darkness without ever filling it, you are witnessing a different order of need. Consider the capacity for honest inwardness. A being on any true journey must eventually turn the gaze upon itself. It must endure the discomfort of seeing where it still manipulates, where it still fears, where it still wounds because it has not healed. When this confrontation is perpetually avoided, when blame is always external, when admission of fault feels like annihilation, when the story is forever rewritten to preserve innocence or superiority, then the inner chamber remains locked and unlit. No visitor enters. No transformation begins. And from that sealed place, the same suffering repeats its cycle, touching every nearby life with mechanical inevitability. Observe how the wider circle of relationships fares. Do fine cracks appear without clear cause? A casual remark that plants suspicion, a careful hint that sows distance. Gradually, people mistrust people. The field of connection thins. This is not chance. It is deliberate unraveling. Weaken the whole, isolate the parts, then the control becomes effortless. When harmony fades and the hand that loosened the threads stays hidden behind concern or victimhood, look more closely. And when uncertainty lingers, present the clearest test, the simple, rooted boundary. Speak it plainly. This crosses what I can accept. No drama, no pleading, just calm truth. Then witness what rises. If space is honored, if reflection, however slow, begins, a conscious presence remains, there is still a doorway. But if the answer is swift anger, elaborate guilt, sudden seduction, or frozen absence, you have met the wall of the cage. The force inside will do almost anything to remain unseen. These are not foreign invaders to be cast out with force. They are ancient tangles of pain, fear, and unacknowledged energy living through human forms. Your work is not to destroy them. Your work is to see clearly, to preserve the steady flame within you, to move from inner stillness instead of from feared duty, pity, or the dream of being the one who finally saves. In the moment of unobstructed seeing, free of narrative, free of enemy, liberation is immediate, and sometimes in ways no one can predict. That quiet, unshakable clarity becomes the first soft ray that may one day penetrate their long night. Until then, return ceaselessly to the only mirror that never deceives, the one you carry at the center of your being. Face it without mercy or flattery. Know it thoroughly. For the most profound protection from shadows in others is the fearless familiarity with your own. This seeing is not the end of connection. It is connection becoming real. This is the way, not with the hurried glance that seeks to categorize, to condemn, or to comfort itself with easy answers. Not with a heart already leaning toward forgiveness or toward flight. Look the way deep water holds the reflection of the moon. Undisturbed, complete, revealing everything without preference or fear. The shadows we name demons seldom appear as monsters. They do not roar or show teeth. They slip into the quiet spaces between breaths, between words, between the familiar lines of a face you have loved for years. They wear the same gestures, the same laughter, the same quiet sighs you once found beautiful. And because the costume is woven from memory and affection, the mind whispers excuses. This is just how they cope. Everyone carries something. True love stays anyway. Yet the one who walks the path of clear seeing does not argue with these soft stories. It allows them to arise and then lets them pass like clouds across an open sky. What remains after the stories drift away is what matters. Your own presence is the first, most faithful witness. Enter their field without agenda. Do not speak, do not prepare defenses. Simply be, feel the breath moving in the body. Feel the subtle field around the heart. Is there a natural flowering and opening? A sense that life is quietly amplified? Or does something close down? A tightening in the throat, a cooling in the belly, a sudden weight that was not there moments before. Does the mind, usually calm, begin to churn with old echoes, doubt, guilt, small fears that seem to arrive from nowhere? This is not fantasy. This is the ancient language of energy speaking before words can dress it up. A person who carries even fragments of inner light tends to leave you feeling more rooted, more spacious, more yourself. But when an unresolved force moves unchecked within another, it does not remain contained. It extends, it borrows, it quietly draws from your own vitality. You sense the depletion before any explanation can cover it. Trust that silent knowing. It has seen through lifetimes what the conditioned mind has learned to overlook. Now, observe the current of influence. Does their nearness open doors within you, or does it slowly close them? Authentic connection is like good soil. It allows everything to grow in its own direction. It says without speaking, be free, be different, be whole. The shadowed pattern, however, needs agreement to survive. It wears the robe of care, a gentle, I only want what's best for you, that carries the edge of demand. A look of quiet disappointment when you step outside the invisible frame, a sudden cooling until you return to the familiar role. Each time you adjust to restore the peace, a small piece of your sovereignty is quietly surrendered. Time passes. You may not notice how much of your own inner landscape has been reshaped to match theirs. That gradual loss of self-direction is the deepest trace. Then look at the mirror of endless appetite. Certain patterns are built around a void that knows no satisfaction. They drink in praise, drama, secrets, anger, pity, time, every drop of emotional vitality. Yet the vessel never fills. The more you offer, the more the hunger sharpens. Withdraw to protect yourself, and the need becomes louder, more insistent, more creative in its forms. This is not the ordinary human longing for closeness. This is a different kind of thirst, one that uses the host while seeking perpetual supply. When your light only seems to feed the darkness without ever bringing fulfillment, pause. See the difference between mutual nourishment and silent extraction. Consider the willingness to meet the self. Any soul that moves toward truth must eventually turn inward. It must face the uncomfortable places, the places of manipulation, of fear, of harm caused without intention. It must allow the word, "I was wrong," to form without collapse. When this inward meeting is consistently refused, when every pain is someone else's doing, when fault is always external, when the story is rewritten to preserve an image of innocence, then the inner room stays dark and locked. No change can enter. And from that unchanging place, the same waves of suffering flow outward, touching every nearby life in repeating cycles. Watch also how trust and harmony hold in their presence. Do subtle divisions appear without clear origin? A quiet comment that seeds doubt. A careful observation that creates distance. One thread at a time, the fabric of connection weakens. People begin to question each other. Isolation grows. This is not random misfortune. It is strategy. Divide the field. Then the separated become easier to shape. When the circle phrase and the source remains veiled behind concern or wounded innocence, see again. And when all other signs leave room for doubt, offer the final, most revealing mirror, the calm, rooted boundary. Say it simply without anger or apology. This I will no longer allow. Then stand in stillness and watch what awakens. If understanding arrives, even slowly, even imperfectly, a living consciousness is present, a path remains open. But if the response is instant fury, intricate guilt, sudden charm, or complete emotional withdrawal, you have touched the bars of the cage. The force within fears exposure above all. Know this, these are not separate beings to fight or banish. They are old knots of unhealed energy, pain, and fear wearing familiar forms. Your work is not to untie them by force. Your work is to see without illusion, to protect the quiet, steady light within yourself, to act from rooted awareness instead of from pity, obligation, fear, or the wish to be the one who changes everything. In the moment of pure story, free seeing, freedom is already here, and sometimes in ways no one can command. That silent, unjudging clarity becomes the first gentle opening through which light may one day reach the hidden night. Until then, return without ceasing to the only mirror that never lies, the one at the center of your own being. Face it, know it, honor it. For the clearest protection from shadows in others is the fearless, intimate knowledge of your own. This is not the end of love. It is love growing eyes. This is the way. Not with eyes that chase conclusions or cling to comfort. Not with a mind already drafting its verdict before the first breath settles. Look as the ancient pine watches the seasons pass, steady, unswayed, seeing every shift without grasping, without rejecting. The shadows we call demons almost never storm in with fire and thunder. They arrive like evening mist rolling over familiar ground. They settle into the cadence of a voice you have known forever, into the pause between sentences, into the exact way a shoulder lifts when something is hidden. They wear the skin of mother, father, sister, brother, friend of 20 years. And because the face is beloved, the heart immediately offers protection. This is just their struggle. Nobody is perfect. Family means unconditional. Yet the one who practices clear seeing does not fight these tender explanations. It allows them to rise, drift, dissolve. What is left when the stories float away is the naked truth, quiet, sometimes painful, always real. Your first teacher is never a book, never advice, never accusation. Your first teacher is your own living field of awareness. Step into their presence as though entering a temple, empty-handed, without expectation. Let attention rest in the breath, in the chest, in the subtle currents beneath thought. Does life within you expand naturally, like dawn opening the sky? Or does something contract? A tightening across the ribs, a cooling in the core, a faint heaviness that arrived without invitation. Does the mind, usually spacious and light, suddenly fill with echoes, old self-doubt, fleeting guilt, narratives you had released long ago? This is no mere mood. This is energy revealing itself in the only language it possesses before words arrive to disguise it. A being who carries some degree of inner alignment, even if wounded, tends to leave you feeling more present, more rooted, more alive in your own skin. But when a denser, unacknowledged force moves through another, without restraint, it reaches outward. It seeks to feed. It draws, often unconsciously, from your own life current. You register the loss before reason can explain it away. Honor that silent registration. It has never lied. Now turn to the flow of power between you. Does their nearness feel like wide sky, allowing every part of you to breathe and grow? Or does it feel like a garden with unseen walls? Genuine love creates room. Go, become, return as you are. It celebrates your divergence. The shadow dynamic requires sameness. It cloaks control in care. A soft, I'm worried, laced with unspoken demand. A sigh that carries judgment. A temporary absence of warmth until you conform again. Each time you shift to restore the balance, another thread of your own authority is quietly given away. Years accumulate. You may wake one day realizing how much of your direction now follows of their gravity instead of your own inner north. That imperceptible shrinking is the truest signature. Then there is the mirror of the never-filled cup. Some patterns exist around a bottomless hollow. They take in attention, intensity, secrets, tears, praise, conflict, every form of emotional charge. Yet the emptiness widens. Offer a measure of yourself and the hunger only grows keener. Create distance to protect your own vitality and the demand becomes inventive, urgent, sometimes theatrical. This is not the sacred thirst of a soul still unfolding. This is something else. A force that inhabits the person while perpetually seeking external sustenance. When your offering seems only to sharpen the appetite, when your presence fuels rather than meats, see it for what it is. Observe the relationship to inward truth. Every being walking toward wholeness must eventually stop, must stand naked before its own reflection, must taste the discomfort of its own contradictions, its own harm, its own fear. When this encounter is endlessly postponed, when fault is always elsewhere, when apology feels like death, when the story is perpetually rearranged to preserve a flawless image, then the inner sanctuary remains sealed. No light penetrates, no evolution occurs. And from that unchanging chamber, the same suffering radiates in perfect, mechanical repetition. Watch how connection itself behaves in their orbit. Do fine fractures appear without visible cause, a whispered suggestion, a carefully placed doubt. One small seed at a time, trust between others begins to wither. Isolation spreads. This is not accident. It is the oldest maneuver. Divide the field, weaken the bonds, then the solitary become far easier to influence. When the circle quietly unravels and the hand that pulled the threads stays concealed behind concern or injury, look deeper. And when doubt still whispers, offer the final, most piercing mirror, the simple, unshakable boundary spoken from stillness. This I will not accept. No drama, no negotiation, just clear, calm truth. Then stand in presence and observe what awakens. If space is granted, if even the smallest reflection emerges, a conscious being still lives there. A way forward exists. But if fury erupts, if guilt is weaponized, if charm appears like sudden fog, or if silence descends like a steel door, you have met the prison wall. The thing inside dreads being seen. These are not separate enemies to vanquish. They are old, knotted currents of pain, fear, shame, and unintegrated energy moving through human forms. Your sacred task is not to conquer them. It is to see without distortion, to shield the clear flame you carry, to choose from deep stillness rather than from fear, duty, pity, or the illusion of rescue. The instant unobstructed seeing arises. empty of story, empty of foe, you are already liberated. And in the rarest moments, beyond strategy or hope, that single ray of unflinching, compassionate clarity may become the first breath of light that quietly enters their ancient darkness. Until such mystery unfolds, return ceaselessly to the one mirror that cannot deceive, the one that lives at your very center. Gaze into it without flinching. Know it completely, because the most profound shield against shadow in others is the fearless, intimate embrace of your own. This is not the abandonment of love. This is love learning how to see. This is the path. Not with eyes clouded by hope or hardened by hurt. Not with a mind racing to fix, to flee, or to forgive before the truth has even spoken. Look as the mountain looks at the river, eternal, unmoved, yet seeing every ripple, every bend, every quiet force that shapes the stone over time. We have walked through the 6 mirrors together, 6 silent teachers, 6 unflinching reflections. They are not weapons to wield against those you love. They are not accusations to hurl in anger. They are simply light, clear, steady light that reveals what has been moving in the dark. The body that tightens when no danger is visible. The control that wears the face of care. The hunger that never knows fullness. The refusal to meet one's own shadow. The slow unraveling of trust in the wider circle. The storm that awakens when a healthy boundary is finally drawn. These are not signs of evil people. They are signs of old, untransformed energies that have found a home in human form. Sometimes they belong to others. Sometimes, if we are brutally honest, they stir within ourselves too. That is why the practice never ends with looking outward. The real work begins and ends here in the quiet chamber of your own being. Return to this place daily. Polish this mirror without mercy or flattery. See your own patterns, your own moments of control, your own bottomless needs, your own resistance to self-honesty, your own subtle ways of dividing or withdrawing when truth becomes uncomfortable. Know these shadows intimately, not to punish yourself, but so that no disguise can ever fool you again. Not in others, not in yourself. When you stand in this kind of seeing, something extraordinary happens. You no longer need to fight. You no longer need to save. You no longer need to run. You simply are, present, rooted, clear. And from that place, your choices become clean. Sometimes you stay and hold space with wise distance. Sometimes you step back with love and without guilt. Sometimes you walk away entirely, not from hatred, but from reverence for the light you carry. And in the rarest, most mysterious moments, beyond strategy, beyond hope, that single flame of your clear, unaggressive awareness may become the very first breath of warmth that touches the long frozen night within another. Not because you forced it, not because you preached, but because light recognizes itself. And when one flame remains steady in the wind, others remember they too can burn. So go now, not to hunt demons, not to label or to leave. Go to practice, go to observe, go to protect what is most sacred within you. Go to live from the inside out, awake, compassionate, and unafraid of what you see.